I'm currently making a goofy vampire game. I'm an indie animator, game developer. Just been making YouTube videos for a long time, and it's something I really enjoy sharing.
So your last video was 10 years in 60 seconds. How did your very first game happen, and how old were you then?
I think my very first game was probably more than 10 years ago, actually. It was just something I'd always been interested in. I wanted to learn a few different ways to try out game development. And that's where I was introduced to a engine called Construct 2. And I just immediately fell in love with it because I'm much more of a visual thinker. And that's kind of where I jump-started my game creation. So I was probably about 13.
Let's start in the graveyard. Looking back at all your dream projects that never made it, which one still stays with you? And what actually killed it?
I don't think ever really got to the point where I was taking them seriously. The only one that I really did think I would finish was Coco the Last Leaf, which is the only other game that I have on Steam. There's a demo on Steam at least, and I had a Steam page for it. I think that one stays with me because I have fond memories of working on it. I really like how the art turned out and the world was building, but it was just huge, the concept for the game. And the progress I made on it was significant, but not nearly enough. It would have taken me several more years to finish it. So the real reason that one died was honestly that I had to leave. I took a 2-year hiatus from working on game development and everything to serve a mission for my church, which I've kind of talked about in a few different videos. Knew it was going to come to at least a temporary close, so I made a vertical slice, put a demo out on Steam, which was great practice, and just so I could have something out there to show for all my hard work. And then I left it for 2 years, and by the time I came back, I kind of had a different perspective on things, and I wanted to take a step away from that because I thought I was too deep in that project. So in a way, taking a step away from the project for quite a while gave me that space to consider whether it was really something I wanted to double down on.
I feel that with the taking a step back, a great approach. But when you made the project, or when you took a step back from it, was it a clean decision that you slowly stopped to engage with it? And how did you know it was dead, or how did you know it was dead for the time?
Right. Yeah, I mean, like I said in the last question, a lot of the games that I did make, because I would say I stopped working on a lot of different dream games, but I don't know if I ever really considered them alive because they never got to a point where I was serious enough about them to put them in production, to say. Coco the Last Leaf was really the only project that I explicitly decided to stop working on after entering production mode, where I thought, this is going on Steam, this is going to be finished, and I'm going to sell this eventually. And that one was a clean break just because I knew I wanted to end up working on something else. And so I just stopped working on it after I released the demo. And it was clean, but it wasn't necessarily easy to leave behind.
Over the years, you've built plenty of small games and game jam projects. What lessons did those teach you that a big dream project never could?
The process of building a tiny game for a game jam is so different, and it gets you in a totally different frame of mind. The biggest thing, obviously, is learning how to finish a game and learning how to scope a really small game, because you have to finish your game jam project in a couple days, which means you have to try and get maybe a main menu out and have it in a playable state where people can understand what they need to do. So tutorials, all those different things that you don't really think about when you're just working on a game for yourself. It teaches you the practice of thinking small about your game idea, and then taking that idea and thinking even smaller until you get to the point where you really have reached the minimum viable product, which is to say the bare minimum that your game needs to actually be what it needs to be. And so it really depends on your idea, but I think almost all the time, if you come up with an idea in a game jam, it can always be reduced to an even simpler version, which I think is really important. It's developing a bigger game. You still have to think about, is this feature necessary for what I'm trying to create here, for the feeling I'm trying to get the player to have? This is kind of off topic, but I think is a good thing to say here. Something that I've done a lot recently is I love watching indie animations on YouTube. It's one of my favorite pastimes, and a lot of them are 2 to 5 minutes. But it's impressive that even within that time frame, they can still tell a really meaningful story or communicate something super significant, even with something so small. And so I think that's a helpful way to think. I think as game devs, we always think of our dream games we love growing up and how they're big and dramatic and cinematic, but you don't need that to communicate something that is still worthwhile. And I think that those indie animations have to kind of taught me that.
But what jam was it that you participated in?
Well, I've done a bunch of different game jams. I started during COVID. That was my first game jam. I had just bought A Sprite, and so I was just learning how to make my own art for games, and ever since then I was kind of hooked. I mean, obviously I had a lot more free time during COVID, like most people did, so I think that was the birthplace of my love of game jams. I think I've done about 10 of them. I think I made a video about it on my YouTube channel a while ago, going over all those games. And it's funny that I talk about making something significant that tells a meaningful story, because none of those games fit that bill. They're all super goofy. But it's something that I'm thinking about a lot more now, is like, how can I build games that mean something and that communicate an idea that I think matters.
That's a huge impression on others, I think. And on the topic huge. So Vampy's Big Day was your game which broke basically an algorithm and which grew really large and really big in a short amount of time. What did you think was different about it from day one?
I think the DNA of Vampy's Big Day feels different because I was never taking it very seriously, especially at the start. It was born in a Blackthorn Prod game competition, which I've talked about before. The theme was Day in the Life of Blank, and I just got thinking about goals and shadows and light. And initially it was going to be Day in the Life of a Gamer, because my thought process was gamers don't like to touch the sun either. Thankfully, I changed it from a gamer to a vampire, and that's where Vampy was born. It was the first time I'd ever tried out the MS Paint look, the kind of style that the game has now, and it was completely just like an experiment. I didn't take it very seriously, and I think that actually ended up fitting my style, like the style of how I animate, how I create games. And it also has reduced a ton of pressure to create a magnum opus. Even though at times I've been like, oh man, I have to make this game the best game possible, I take a step back and realize like this isn't going to be the best game I ever create. And it doesn't have to be. Like it's going to be silly. That's what people are expecting. And that's helped me a lot to make progress on the game, to be bold in the decisions that I make, and just not to take it very seriously. So I think that's what feels different about it.
We can hear that you truly love your project. But what was the hardest thing you had to cut from Vampy's Big Day? Something you genuinely loved. How did you decide to get rid of it?
In the game, I really want the player to feel like they can choose whether they want to be a good vampire, whether they want to be evil. That's kind of a core theme of the game, is redemption versus embracing the darkness. And so to do that, I thought that I wanted to do a really elaborate skill tree, whereas the player would kill more villagers, you'd become stronger as a vampire, get cool vampire abilities like Shadow Walk and turning into a bat, stuff like that. And then on the other side of the coin, if you were to be more peaceful, you could get abilities that make your relationship with the Sunfair that you're working with stronger. And so that had some cool abilities in the game that I was excited about. And I think a lot of the community was excited about those too. Who doesn't want to turn into a bat? But I ended up cutting the skill tree system because it was just genuinely too confusing. I realized that because as people were playing through my game, I just saw it in their eyes at the end of a level. It would show all the villagers you killed, all the villagers you spared, and it would show how much XP you got. That XP would give you health, but it would also influence your morality, and it would also count as XP. It was like 3 different systems all in one. And I realized if I'm already doing this thing with XP and with the health bar, I might just merge those into one. And also, I despise doing anything related to UI. I hate making menus in my games. It's a flaw of mine. And so it wasn't too hard to back off from the idea of building a skill tree because I was kind of dreading it to begin with. But yeah, I think it just felt too confusing. I think simplifying it and making it more united with the theme of the game was helpful. And it also, I know I have limited time making this game. I don't have infinite resources. And so I'd rather spend the time I do have making the world around you feel different based on how you choose to act in the game versus making you feel cooler. And so I think so far that's been a very good decision because I've been able to spend more time building funny NPCs, building out the story to be more impactful. And so I'm just dedicating more time to creating the world. And I think that's been a very beneficial decision to cut the tree.
So when you started sharing everything you did, like with the devlogs, would you think that helped you make the games or made it harder to finish even?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of things that go into making devlogs and what you can expect from like people actually watching what you're making. For me, I've always loved sharing whatever I'm making. I've been making YouTube videos for well over 10 years in varying formats. So I've been making devlogs for about 6 years for the games Coco the Last Leaf and for this game Vampy's Big Day and a couple small projects in between. And I love it because you can get all that feedback from people. You can instantly see, is this idea resonating with people? They can give you ideas. They can contribute. Ultimately, building a community around something is very rewarding for me. So I don't know if I would recommend making devlogs to everyone because it is a lot of time and effort, but it's something that I genuinely enjoy doing. I enjoy making the videos. I enjoy posting the videos. It has made it harder to quit, for example, Coco the Last Leaf, because here I am not promising to everyone that I'm going to create this game, but they're all expecting it. They're all excited about it. I think Coco even said that he was disappointed that I ended up stopping working on Coco the Last Leaf. So there are pros and cons. People get invested in it, and so it can be a little bit harder if you decide to drop a game. But for me, it's something that's very rewarding.
Someone watching this is probably deep into their dream project that isn't even working, but they're afraid to admit it. What would you, Jerbob, tell them?
That's a tough position to be put in because there's so many factors. I think the most important thing to consider first off is what your motivation is with creating games. Because if you're just doing it as a fun side project, as a thing you like to do after work, to relax, and it's something that you're just passionate about and you're enjoying working on it, I see no reason to stop working on a dream game, even if it's not working, quote unquote, whatever that necessarily means. Yeah, if it's a fun side project, keep working on it. But if you're trying to make money, become a game developer full-time, or whatever that goal is, it could be something that is worth abandoning. But I think, again, there's so much that goes into that. For me, the reason I quit Coco wasn't primarily driven by any sort of desire to succeed on Steam or anything like that. I just wanted to continue learning and improving my game development skills. And so that's another thing you can consider, is like whether you want to take a step back to keep working on your game dev skills. And for me, that's what it was. I wanted to learn Blender. I wanted to learn how to use new game engines. And so I felt like because I was so invested in a project, I wasn't able to take a step back and work on new things. So there's varying reasons you can consider quitting a dream game. But again, it's so dependent on your situation.
Over the years, coming from all the way back from 10 years to now, how has your definition of finish changed over the years?
Yeah, I think that's something I'm still learning with Vampy's Big Day, as it's the first game I've really taken all the way to completion. But there's a very big difference between game jam finished and selling a game on Steam finished, is what to realize. The biggest difference is like QA testing and honestly hundreds of hours of play testing. It makes a big difference. You're not just like throwing something out there that's half finished, and people are expecting that with a game jam project. But when someone's buying something on Steam, there's a much higher bar, which can be stressful, especially as a solo developer. But just knocking out one bug at a time, that's kind of what I've just been focused on for the last few weeks.
What's your pitch for Vampy's Big Day to someone that just heard about it for the first time? And just for a little bit something special, what is destined to come?
It's a very poetic way of saying that question. So Vampy's Big Day is a goofy stealth game, and you play as a vampire learning to avoid the deadly sunlight with the help of an unlikely ally, a sun fairy. And the core theme of the game is choosing redemption or embracing the darkness. As far as what's next for Vampy's Big Day, I hope to finish it by the fall. That's my goal for it. And I'm planning to make it a small game. I doubt it's going to be more than a few hours of gameplay. However, keeping it small is very much my intention with it. I want it to be small so I can fill the world and make it feel like it's crafted with care. And also, I hope it should be pretty replayable because there's different routes similar to Undertale where you can play pacifist, you can play evil. So depending on how you play through the game, it'll feel different. And I really want that to be my core theme going forward. I don't want to try to bloat the game. It's going to be small, it's going to be handcrafted, and I hope that it'll be filled with soul. That's my goal for it.
Every dead project Jerbob just described, he was carrying the weight of this has to be the best thing I ever make. Vampy's Big Day works because he let it be small and silly, and the pressure never reached it. The games you protect the hardest are the ones you end up burying. The one you let to be a joke is the one that ships. So go back to the Survivor. Vampy's Big Day is on Steam, wishlist it, it's out this fall, and Jerbob's channel is linked below. If this is what you built with, subscribe and hit the bell. Without it, YouTube only shows these videos to about 7% of you. New ones come every week. Discord is in the description. What's the dream game you're taking too seriously right now? Comment it down below. I try to read all of them. And with that, I hope I'll see you in the next one.